Hello, YouTube. Today I am going to do this little tier list idea that I have for different active NASCAR drivers, where I predict as of 2022. We're midway through the chase of that season right now, as of me recording this. So, to those of you in the future, hello from the past. But I'm going to predict whether or not I think this driver will or will not win a championship in the future, and in this case, whether or not they've won in the past. So let's get right into it. The first driver right here is Ross Chastain. So as we all know, he has had a good year thus far. This is his first season as sort of like one of the top drivers in the league. And I think this is a bit of a tough call. I think he will win eventually. He obviously hasn't won yet. But I'm not 100% certain. And the reason why that is because there's been times in the past where certain drivers have like a breakout season, and then that's it. That's kind of like their best season. If I had to guess right now, I don't think he would win the title in 2022, but I do think he'll get one eventually. Though I wouldn't count it out as this is just a lucky season for him. And not only that, he is already 29 years old, so he doesn't have as much time as some other drivers that I'm gonna list off here. The second one, this is that 27 team. It's not even a full team. This is you probably expected this. They are not going to win unless some driver they get excels. They are a charter team, basically. Next up is the 31, which is currently driven by Justin Haley. I don't think he'll win one. He's 22 years old. Maybe he'll break out further than he has so far, but right now, I don't see him winning a title. I do think he'll probably win another race or two, maybe even 3 or 4. But I think he'll kind of be more of a mid-tier driver throughout his career, maybe making the playoffs a few times. Next up is the 45 here. We know that it's gone through a bunch of shifts, but I'm gonna just say it's Kurt Busch, since he's really the driver that's supposed to be in this number, and I don't think he'll win again. This should be pretty obvious. He's at the end of his career. He just got a really bad injury, and he still has not recovered from it as of me recording this. And even prior to this, he has not quite been championship caliber in recent years. He's literally won one race every year since I think 2016. So Kurt Busch, to all you Kurt Busch fans, sorry, I just don't see it happening. Next up, we got Ricky Stenhouse, who obviously better than the 27, but I think he has an even lower shot than Haley. If you watch him, it's a good day for him if he gets a top 10. He won twice in 2017, and that's just kind of been the peak of his career ever since. I do think he will maybe pull off another win or two before his career's over, but I just don't see any way he can become a championship driver without like some hard career reset. Next up is Alex Bowman. This is a tough call, and I could be biased since Bowman is one of my favorites, but I do think he will squeeze out a title. He does show up somewhat frequently for top finishes. He can be kind of inconsistent, but also go on really hot streaks. And with this really gimmicky point system, I do think that at some point, he could churn one out. I think that it's a little bit less likely than Ross Chastain, but I do see it happening. Though you could probably talk me into putting him in the no column pretty easily as well. Next up, we got the 66, who failed to qualify for the Daytona 500, I believe, and then just shut down. So obviously they are. No, I'm just kidding. Moving along, we have Brad Keselowski. So Keselowski was pretty much a title contender for the past decade until 2022. He decided to shift priorities into being an owner driver, and his performance as a driver has gone downhill very far, which we kind of expected. But I still think that he has a better chance at Kurt Busch of getting title number 2, but I don't think it'll happen. He's already 38 years old, I believe, and I think he will come back, and I think he will be a playoff contender again. But I just don't see enough momentum to being the driver he was that year in 2012, where like he was sort of the guy to beat. I feel like that momentum has just completely fallen off, and that he's gonna struggle against guys like Chastain and Bowman that I have here, if he does even contend for the title. Next up, we have another charter team. Pretty obvious. They go back and forth with the different drivers and that don't even run for points at all. So that's the end of that. 78. This is that BJ Mcleod. I guess because they have a driver that does a little bit, that sticks around a little more consistently for races, I'll say it's higher than these three. But they're not going anywhere. They're like 10 laps down every single race, maybe less than 5 if they're lucky, and that's them. Next up, though, we have Daniel Suarez, another one of my favorites, who I'm gonna say no. Kind of unfortunate. I do like the guy, but he's just not consistent enough. I do think he'll maybe pull off 10 career wins, but I just don't see enough momentum from him to catapult to a championship. And I think he'll probably be lucky to even ever make it to a Final Four, to be honest. So he could prove me wrong. This has been his best season so far. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Next up, we got another charter team. This is the 16. They actually have some decent drivers. Noah Gragson, you could, if you're talking about him, maybe he'll win a title. But for right now, since it's kind of a mixed bag of drivers, I'm just gonna put it down here. Better than these guys, but still below. Allmendinger and Hemrick. I don't see any way they really compete in the Cup landscape. We know Allmendinger was there for years, and he was just kind of meh. He won a few races so far. Maybe he'll win another. But this 16 team, I guess as a whole, I'm going to say no, they have no shot at winning a title, even down the road. Next up, we got Aric Almirola, who was going to retire at the end of this year, but decided to stick around for at least one more. I do think that he definitely has a lower chance than Suarez. I don't think he'll win a title. I think he's kind of done, really, he's kind of maxed out his potential. Maybe he could win one more race next year. He's kind of been running mid-pack this year. I'm gonna put out Almarola back here, since his clock is ticking. He seems to be declining in performance, and it's a good season for him if he even gets a win. So unless he explodes within the career he has left, he is not winning the title. Next up, we have Austin Syndrick, who is very young. He's had a decent rookie season, but I don't know. I think Syndrick definitely has a better chance at winning a title than Alex Bowman does. But I'm going to say he has a slightly better chance than Ross Chastain, just because, his career trajectory, he has more time than Chastain. And even though he hasn't been performing quite as well, the rookie season, there were other drivers who had terrible rookie seasons, and they still came out and did really well in later years. So I'm going to say that Austin Syndrick will win a title. It won't be for a little while. He's got a field of more experienced drivers to work through before he can really get there. But I do think he'll do it. Up next, we got Austin Dillon, who recently snagged his 4th career win after a insane finish. That's some good grammar on my part. And I think I'm going to put him here because even though he's about the same age as Suarez, I think, and he has more career wins, his career has kind of stagnated over the past few years. He's done, a little bit better, a little bit worse since about 2017, I'm going to say, every year. Unlike Suarez, who seems to be a lot more dynamic. At least he has been this year. We'll see if that stays. But Dillon, I don't see too much performance change out of him. I think he'll maybe make it to 10 wins. I'm going to say between the range of 7 to 10 wins by the time his career is finished. So that's that. Next up, we got the 23, who I'm going to categorize as Bubba Wallace for this. I know that there's the whole Ty Gibbs thing between the different numbers, but since in name it's still Kurt Busch here, Bubba Wallace here from the start of the season, I'm just going to categorize it as such. I think Wallace has a bit of a better chance than Dillon, but less than Suarez. He was okay during the regular season this year. He had a few good runs. He managed to pull off I don't know if you'd call it a big upset at Kansas, but he's grabbed his 2nd career win now. So I don't think that his career is strong enough to carry him all the way to a championship. Next up, we have Cole Custer, who seemed to be on track to do really well in his rookie year, but has since in 2021 and so far in 2022, this has gone down the drain. I would put him here. I don't think he's going to win a title, long story short. If you watch his performance, you'd probably agree with me. So I could see him maybe leaving this 41 team and starting from scratch somewhere else and picking up maybe another win or two before his career ends. He's only 24 or 5, so he does have a decent time to improve from where he's currently at. But I don't think he will ever make it to a title. He'll probably have a similar career to what Stenhouse seems to be going on, trajectory-wise. Next up, we have Chase Briscoe, who has been doing much better than Cole Custer. And this one, it's a bit of a tough call to decide, but I'm going to say he won't win. The playoff format, as I said earlier with Bowman, is very gimmicky, but I don't think Briscoe's performance is quite good enough to carry those gimmicks all the way to a championship. Oh, there's my phone going off. But he's very inconsistent. He can win races more than just the one he already has so far. He's Mr. Checkers or Wreckers so far this year, at least. But I don't think that he has what it takes to quite make it up here. Now, who does have what it takes to win, as he already has, is Chase Elliott, which is why I'm putting him up here. He's probably been the best driver this season overall. He has the most wins. One of those wins was kind of a lucky pounce, but a whole bunch of those are with drivers in general. I don't know if he'll win this year. This season is insane. But I do think that he will pick up a second title at some point during his career. And he's going to win many more races for sure. I have no doubt in my mind about that. And he's going to be, one of the drivers, the top drivers throughout the 2020s. Meanwhile, here we've got Chris Buescher in the 17. I think he would be here. He won the Xfinity title in 2015, I believe. I don't pay a ton of attention to the minor league series. Well, I don't. You get what I'm saying. But he's having a similar career to Stenhouse so far. I do think he is a little bit better of a driver than Stenhouse, but overall, he's kind of a medium good driver. He'll maybe make the playoffs a few times. He'll have a few quote unquote good seasons where he wins a race or two, but it's not going to be enough to match these guys up here. Who might have enough, but it's a serious dilemma, is Christopher Bell. He's gotten one win apiece the past two seasons. Granted, the 2022 is not over yet, so maybe he'll win another one. He has been one of the best drivers since the playoffs started. But I do think that he's going to come up just a little bit short. I think that Bell is kind of similar to drivers like Casey Kane and Ryan Newman from a decade ago. For those of you newcomers, those are retired drivers. He is very good. He can put together a win, or a winning car, I should say. Oh, excuse me, throat's dry. But ultimately, I do feel like he's going to be one of those drivers that comes up a little bit short of making it to a championship. He could very easily prove me wrong. You could probably talk me into switching him over to here in just 30 seconds. Next up, we have Cody Ware, who is the greatest driver to ever exist. End of story. Let's move on. No, I'm just kidding. He would go down here. He's the only full-time of these cars that run multiple laps down every race. So obviously he is not going anywhere unless his career changes. He kind of got his job from his dad. Cody Ware, if you're watching this, no offense, I love you. But next, moving on, we have Corey Lajoie, who has sort of been this wild card so far this season. He came close to winning a race in Atlanta before he got spun out by, I can't remember if it was Chase Elliott. That finish was another weird one. But honestly, I have him even lower than Almarola, even with Almarola's very, very limited time left. And the reason why that is because he seems to just be a very mediocre driver. He was back with some of these cars back in the day, like 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I just don't see a ton of improvement to go off to further his career. Maybe I do think he'll probably win a race or two. Maybe make it to the potential of where, say, Buescher or Stenhouse is as of me making this video. But Corey Lajoie, I feel kind of bad because he seems like a nice guy too. But as far as driver performance goes, I just don't see a ton of potential to move further than he already has. Next up is Denny Hamlin, who is essentially currently the ticking time bomb, the biggest one, of whether or not he'll win his first title. He's come close many times. And I'm going to say yes. You could probably talk me into saying no, but I'm going to say yes, and I think he has a bit of a better chance than Alex Bowman does, because this season I feel like he's going to luck out. I do think that Denny Hamlin actually has the best shot at making a championship. The reason being, or winning the championship in 2022. I keep tripping over my words. The reason being that Chase Elliott has kind of had a hot streak this year that's gone cold. And all the other drivers seem to be having problems. Hamlin was having a lot of problems at the beginning of the year, but he seems to be one of the most straightened out drivers that's still in the hunt for the championship this year. Of course, other guys like Larson and Logano, we'll get to those guys in a minute. They're also performing pretty well. But I think that Hamlin is performing the best overall with that. And if he still doesn't win the title this year, I feel like at that point it would be a coin flip, whether or not he'll win one. He is getting old, and he's obviously started to shift his priorities somewhat with 23XI Racing. But I do think that he still has what it takes, and he is proving it. Erik Jones, on the other hand, I think is another driver that's going to fall short. He's definitely below Bowman and Briscoe in performance. I think he has a bit more potential to win a title than Suarez does. He did a little bit better during the Joe Gibbs Racing tenure that they both had, but at the same time, Richard Petty Motorsports, their organization, it's always on a bit of unstable legs. Sorry about that. I just got a phone thing. But Erik Jones, I do think that he's a good driver, but I don't think he's good enough to quite make it to the title. I would say these 5 drivers here, I think that they have the potential to win a title, but I don't think they're quite going to get to one. Kind of like how drivers like Mark Martin, Carl Edwards in the past, they came so close, but they just couldn't quite pull it off. I think that these guys have a decent shot at becoming those types of drivers, maybe even Dillon and Haley, but these 5 for sure. Next up, we got 15, which runs around between various drivers. So this is obvious. I think they'd be below Cody Ware in terms of who could pull off a title. David Reagan is the only decent driver that runs this number as of me recording this. But I just don't see any way that the Rick Ware Racing as a whole is going to win a title. Watch. They're going to start expanding operations next year. But in the meantime, we have Joey Logano, who I do think will pull off a second title. He's been consistently good every year since he won that title in 2018. So he obviously has the potential. And unlike some of the other drivers who are still good, who I'm going to get to in a minute, and for that matter, even Keselowski and Kurt Busch, Logano still has a solid window of time to get that next title. So I do think that he has a decent chance of pulling it off. On the other hand, Kevin Harvick is at the tail end of his career. I think that because he hasn't had to worry about injury problems and he has still been a decently consistent driver in recent memory, he has a better chance than Kurt Busch. However, I do suspect that he's going to retire by 2025 at the absolute latest, maybe even sooner. And he hasn't quite been good enough to be that championship caliber driver he was 5, even into 10 years ago. I know that he was still at Richard Childress a whole decade ago. But whatever the case, he's obviously slowing down, and I don't see him pulling off a second title, even though he probably should have gotten one that one of the years that he was very close. As for Kyle Busch, as we all know, the news has been surrounding him like crazy since he made that deal. I do think he has a better chance than all the other previous champions who I said won't win one again, but I still think he won't. I just think that it's kind of turning downhill for him. He's starting to have had his heyday. I don't know if he'll quite have the downfall that Jimmy Johnson did, where he just went from being a championship contender in 2017 to being 10th to 15th place every race in 2018 and not winning at all. I do think that Kyle Busch will win a few races every year for the next few years, but I don't think he'll make a title again. Richard Childress is not quite as powerful as Joe Gibbs with engine quality and everything. So that's my take on Kyle Busch. For Kyle Larson, I think Kyle Larson has the best shot at winning a championship out of any previous champion. This is because, as we all know, he won 10 races last year, which is the first time someone's done that since Jimmy Johnson in 2007, I believe. So I don't know if he can pull that off again, but I do think that he's a championship driver for sure. He's one of the best drivers this year, even if he's not quite as dominant as last year. And I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with for many, many years to come as NASCAR, continues. Up next, we have Harrison Burton. I think he belongs down here. He's very young, so maybe he can prove me wrong, but I don't think he quite has what it takes. He's the son of Jeff Burton, who was another good driver that couldn't quite pull off a title, kind of like maybe where Suarez or Wallace is right now. But maybe he could. I think that he'll probably win maybe a race or two and then dip his career. It's kind of a similar thing where with Dale Sr., everyone thought Dale Jr. was going to be the next big thing, and then he was not great but good. I think Harrison Burton is kind of going to be like that, but with Jeff Burton, who, as we all know, is nothing compared to Dale Sr. Next up is Michael Mcdowell, who I'm going to say is above Stenhouse but below Buescher. He is a veteran at this point. He started off running all the really, really low-tier teams like Cody Ware and these other guys are now. He eventually made his way up and pulled off a Daytona 500 win, which was kind of lucky, but he did put himself in good track position, so credit where it's due. He's had a good season this year, and I do think that he'll probably pull off another win or two somehow before his career is said and done, but it's not enough to catapult him into a championship, not even close. Next up, we have Martin Truex Jr., who is also getting pretty close to the end of his career. And I'm gonna say he has a lower chance than Kyle Busch at winning the title, higher than these other three, but still he belongs in the no category. That 2017 season, I think, was just his golden season, and that all these other years, he's actually kind of gotten lucky to make it as close as he has the past few years, in my opinion, to championship number 2. But I just don't think it'll be enough to make it happen. Like his performance this year, even if you remove the whole playoff format is very gimmicky and he got screwed over, he still has he seems to leave behind trails of inconsistency, and I just think that he's kind of going downhill. On the other hand, in more bright news, we have Ryan Blaney, who I believe will win another title, or not another title, a title. He hasn't won one yet. He seems to be straddling the borderline between drivers that are like the elite in the league and like the tier below it. But I do think at some point he will win one, since he's kind of been under the shadow of guys like Kyle Busch and Martin Truex and Kevin Harvick for the past few years, and that once guys like that clear out, he will be one of the top dogs in the league. And I don't think he'll quite be to the level of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, but I do think he'll win one. He is my favorite driver. This could be biased. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But in the meantime, we have Todd Gilliland, who I think is almost Harrison Burton's twin as far as performance. It's their first ever season, and they've been very, very mediocre this year. They both got rides partially because their dads can rein them up in a way. Burton, Gilliland, if you guys are watching this, no offense, but it's true. And I just don't see Gilliland making it to any sort of championship caliber unless he has a serious change in performance trajectory. Next up, we have Ty Dillon, who has been very, very mediocre for the past several years. In fact, I think that, honestly, he's probably even below Corey Lajoie at this point. He's going to lose his ride at the end of this year. And we don't even know what he's doing next year. Maybe now he's going to be a charter driver. But given that this guy has struggled to even make it to a win, he still hasn't gotten that yet, let alone a championship, I just don't see any pathway to him making the title. And that's my take on Ty Dillon. As for Tyler Reddick, I think that out of all the drivers who haven't won a title yet, he has the absolute best chance. He's been driving for Richard Childress. He's had a breakout year this year. He's won 3 races as of me recording this. He's going, in 2 years, he's going to be going to 2311, who has way more speed. Weird noises. But yeah, 2311, which has way more speed, and he is very talented. He's really shown it this past year. So Tyler Reddick, I'd actually be surprised if he doesn't get a title at some point. This leaves us to the very last driver in this tier list, William Byron, who is somewhat inconsistent, but I do think at some point he'll win a title. I think that between the fact that he has a lot of time and he's a bit more consistent overall for the amount of time he's been in Cup than Bowman. I think he has a better shot at winning a title than those two guys. But given that he's overall somewhat inconsistent, I think that he has a bit of a lesser chance than these guys up here to win the title. So I think I would give him maybe like a 70% chance that at some point he is going to win a title. And I do not think that will come this year. Well, earlier on I said I think Hamlin is the best shot out of any one driver for 2022. But that's my take on what I think will happen with the various active drivers. At least all the full-time ones, and then even some part-time ones down here. I don't know. There's not much else to say with this. So peace out, guys, and have a good day.